Hi folks, happy Friday to you. Welcome to the weekend and to my usual weekly wrap up. And let's start with what have I been reading this week. I finished Surface Detail by Iain Banks, and this has taken me a few weeks to get through on audiobook because I ran out of the free hours that were included with my Spotify premium account and I had to wait for them to renew. But anyway, Surface Detail is the penultimate book in a gradual reread of the Culture series. I have one more left. This is a good old-fashioned battle between heaven and hell, sort of. In Surface Detail, hells are a virtual environment for post-life storage of mind states where the unworthy are sent. Banks goes to town describing the evil torment residents undergo every day for all eternity. And there are demons, there are hideous punishments, fire and brimstone, you name it, the works. Dante, eat your heart out. This was probably my favourite aspect of the book. It's extremely baroque. There are perhaps one or two too many plot threads in Surface Detail. There are around 6 if I remembered correctly, which was a lot to keep straight and I didn't always perfectly manage it. I think he could have ditched 1 or 2 of the plot threads without too much detriment to the story. There's a tale of thwarted revenge. There are culture ships, including a particularly entertaining Abominator-class ship. I really enjoyed the extent to which this ship revelled in its destructive combat capabilities. Fortunately for everyone around them, seldom used. There are alien relics, there are some special circumstances, shenanigans, and we're introduced to a couple more culture agencies to boot. There's a particularly memorable episode of prolonged and caustic cursing from a hell-supporting politician. And there's a lot going on in Surface Detail, but it did all come together in the end. I think Surface Detail is a mid-table culture novel, which by any standards is pretty good. Next, what do Roald Dahl, the Rolling Stones, Jules Verne, the Beatles and Utopia have in common? They all feature to varying degrees in Adam Roberts' new book, Lake of Darkness, which I also finished during the week. Lake of Darkness has some utopian borrowings from the culture books, actually, where several hundred years in the future, humanity is spread across many planets, orbitals and other habitats. And we're very much in a post-scarcity world with AIs, if not exactly running the place, certainly doing a lot of the heavy lifting on behalf of humanity. Not needing to work for a living, people have become hobbyists, dabbling to varying degrees in whatever takes their fancy. One of these fandoms has resulted in a mission to a black hole, which rapidly goes sideways early in the book. The crew are all murdered by the previously stable Captain Rain, who seems to have come under the influence of some malign entity that he was communicating with, something that goes by the moniker the Gentleman. How can he have been communicating? Any fool knows that nothing can get out of a black hole, not even information. And yet, blood is on the walls. And this triggers a sequence of events culminating ultimately in another lengthy mission to the same black hole. Roberts contemplates the nature of utopia, how robust the agreeably collegiate workings of this society might be in the face of professional pride and the pressure cooker environment of a risky deep space mission. How might the largely atheistic utopians cope with the prospect of a supernatural inhabitant of the black hole, the devil himself potentially, imprisoned in the deepest, darkest dungeon available to the universe, a black hole. What an ironic place to put Lucifer, whose name after all means light bringer. There's a mid-book sequence on a planet where an adventurer type is attempting to be the first person to walk on the solid core of an Earth-like planet. Enter Jules Verne, stage left. And that's a frequent reference point for Adam Roberts in his novels. And while interesting or entertaining even, this section felt a little bit out of place for me, serving mainly to introduce some extreme physics, which is important later on, and to provide a piece of equipment that may or may not be the key, literally, to the black hole puzzle. And there are some great characters in Lake of Darkness. I liked a 300-year-old scientist who's outrageously dismissive and pompous to all and sundry. The audiobook narrator did a great job giving her a suitably insufferable voice, just what you want on a 6-month voyage in a starship. I also enjoyed very much spotting the incorrect references to contemporary culture, eroded by time and the fact that your typical utopian can't read or write. And why would they? The AI can do it for them. There's a good section where a particular AI scolds humanity, or a representative of, for being so passive, for having lost the ability to think for ourselves, for not doing the hard work of finding stuff out. It's a little bit worrying on reflection that this could easily be directed at us today, reliant on Google, ChatGPT and, God forbid, TikTok to tell us what we need to know. I enjoyed Lake of Darkness. I think it's my favourite of Robert's books that I've read so far. I tackled another new book this week, The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey, the authors of the wildly successful Expanse series. And we are in the far future, several thousand years in the future, in fact, on the planet Anjin, where the fossil record shows that humanity and Earth biology suddenly appeared on one island some 3,500 years back. No further reference is made to it in the book, but my money is on this being one of the planets at the end of the Ring network featured in The Expanse. If that's true, that is the extent of the link between this trilogy and The Expanse. They are otherwise quite separate. I enjoyed The Expanse. Consider me a fan of both the books and the TV show. The Mercy of Gods is a different beast, though, I think. It has a lot more science going on. In fact, many of the main characters are research scientists, and they are busy doing a lot of research science. Where was I? Yes, we're on the planet when quite suddenly all hell breaks loose. There's an invasion. The Carracks have come to dominate, helped by various lethal client species. The population of the planet is decimated, only in base 8, not base 10. Oxymated, maybe? 1 in 8 of the population is pretty much instantly killed, as a vivid example to the others. The brightest and best of the remainder are then carted off in transporters to another planet in another star system. And their journey is quite a trial, described vividly in the book. You can almost smell the honking conditions that our scientists and other luminaries are kept in for the journey. The bulk of the book is the surviving scientists trying to understand what their new masters want from them, how to be successful in this new reality. There are plenty of other aliens in the same situation, with some active rivalry resulting in some exciting scenes later in the book. The Carracks operate a sink or swim policy, giving minimal direction, expecting their new clients to figure it out or be eliminated as a job lot for failing. What is the best strategy for the humans to deploy? Should we be compliant, bide our time, or should we despair and go out in a blaze of glory, taking as many of the Carracks with us as we can? This is among the tensions explored in The Mercy of Gods. And throughout the book, there are hints and references to a greater war between the Carracks and another unspecified entity, a representative of which is gradually revealed to be among us, amongst the humans of the story. We can expect more of this, I think, in the following books. From a quick scan of BookTube, I've heard several people say that they found this, The Mercy of Gods, disappointing, or found it to be a difficult read. At the risk of being massively condescending, I can imagine that some readers of The Expanse, perhaps those particularly for whom The Expanse is as science fiction as they typically stretch, perhaps fantasy readers, might find The Mercy of Gods a tougher read than The Expanse. Now, having said that, I think that The Mercy of Gods is still fairly light and popcorny, and I think it does a good job of teeing up the next part of the trilogy. I enjoyed it, and I'll certainly be reading the follow-on books. Next, I read Inherit the Stars by James P. Hogan, given to me by Whitney, she of Secret Source of Storycraft. Hogan apparently wrote this in 1977 in response to 2001: A Space Odyssey, the surreal ending of which he absolutely hated. Inherit the Stars, then, is a puzzle, and the characters in the book work to solve it. The premise is a good one. Early on in the book, a mission to the moon finds a dead astronaut complete with spacesuit hidden in a lunar cave. Odd, but okay. The puzzle is set, though, when it becomes clear that this astronaut has been dead for 50,000 years, well before our entire recorded history, never mind our space program. The obvious question, then, is how is that possible? And the rest of the book seeks an answer to that very question. In style terms, Hogan reminds me of Gregory Benford. They both started writing at about the same time, in fact. There's a lot of science, a lot of smoking, a lot of whiskey, and a lot of outdated computer technology projected forward into the future. The protagonist, Dr. Vic Hunt, like Hogan himself, is a Brit, an out-of-the-box thinker who is drafted in to help solve the puzzle. Dr. Hunt reminded me a little bit of Grosvenor in A. Van Vogt's Voyage of the Beagle with his new combinatory science of nexialism. Dr. Hunt has a similar approach, synthesising inputs from the wider team, mixing them together and facilitating new insights. I tried to figure out the answer to the puzzle along with the team of characters in the book, and I got pretty close in some respects, but in general I was pleasantly surprised by the ending. Inherit the Stars is the first of a trilogy, and now it's actually 5 books. 2 were added later on. The story in Inherit the Stars is complete in itself and does resolve in a satisfying way, but does leave plenty to be explained and explored in the remaining books. I don't have any of the others, unfortunately, but if I see them kicking about, I shall definitely be grabbing them and reading them at some point. Next, I squeezed in another John Wyndham, taking my tally for this month to 5, by the way. The Outward Urge is a fix-up. It has 5 vignettes featuring various members of the Troon clan and their adventures in space. The Outward Urge rather quaintly imagines a British space program which builds a substantial space station and then later a moon base. And in reality, we barely got a rocket off the ground, but it was nice to have a Dan Dare moment reading this book. Being a short book, under 200 pages, made of 5 separate parts, there isn't a lot to get your teeth into. I did enjoy the vision Wyndham had of man's expansion out into the solar system, and I liked the fact that he rather briskly wiped out the entire northern hemisphere in a nuclear war, leaving Brazil and Australia to become the resident superpowers. Overall, most of the pleasure in reading this book came from being able to check off the last of the Wyndham post-war novels, which in turn means that I can give some more thought to a video featuring those works. And also the cover's really cool. So that's another pretty good week, bringing my total for August to 19 novels, which is a record month for me. What have you been reading this week? Is there anything that you'd recommend? Do let me know in the comments below. It's always great to hear from you. Channel stuff next then. Subscribers are at 3,126, which is up 27 on last week. And if you're one of those 27, or if you're watching for the first time today, a huge welcome to you. I'm John, and I focus on reading, collecting and chatting nonsense about science fiction books old and new. Comment of the week was from Stephen Morton, who mentioned a couple of his recent reads, including Seven Eves by Neil Stevenson, one of my personal favourites. And he also likes Surface Detail, a book that I finished during the week, and we share a delight in the Abominator class vessel. My thanks to Stephen for taking the time to leave a comment, and of course to all of you that do the same each week. It's much appreciated. Let's take a quick look at what was on the channel this week. I seem to have settled into a lower output routine. A typical week currently looks like this weekly update and one other video, very occasionally two. Anyway, this week on Sunday, there was a look at my TBR for September, selected with the aid, as usual, of the Bingo Balls of Fate and the Decision Dice of Destiny. And I'm really pleased to say that there's some great books in the selection for September, and I'm really looking forward to reading them. If you haven't watched that video already, then I suggest you do. I think you'll like it. On the book buying front, I've added a few more books to the pile. There's a Christopher Priest, a Stephen Baxter, and a Charles Stross, with a couple more on the way. In a total world of books fail, instead of a second Baxter book that I was expecting, I was sent Geological History of Britain and Ireland. I'm not sure how they got those mixed up, really. I am assured that the correct book is now on its way, along with a Chris Beckett that I don't yet have. The to be hauled pile now stands at 15. This week I've watched a couple of things in Science Fiction BookTube. I watched Liminal Spaces review an R.A. Lafferty short story, Snuffles, which sounds enjoyably weird, seeming to take strong influence from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. I also watched Ira do a science fiction book haul, which is always fun to watch. And as usual, I'll put the links to those videos in the description for this video. Looking ahead to the coming week, I have two probably videos planned. There will be a look at zones in science fiction, places where weird stuff happens, where the usual rules don't apply, and that should be up on Sunday evening. And time allowing, there'll also be a look back at the umpteen books that I read during August. I'll tier rank them and I'll declare a book of the month. It's going to be a tight race, I think. There have been some really great books this month. A bit further down the track, in the last day or two, I have confirmed arrangements to speak with Chris Beckett, whose work I've been enjoying this year, and that video should arrive in mid-September. Over the next week or two, I should be thinking about what questions or topics I'd like to cover with Chris. And if you have any ideas or burning questions for him that you'd like me to ask, do let me know in the comments and I'll add them to the mix. I'm really looking forward to speaking to Chris. As I say, his works are some that I've enjoyed this year very much. Reading wise, I will finally be reading some of the short stories in the 70s chapter of my reading challenge, Life Story. I have actually made a start on that already. For the novels, tomorrow I'll make a cheeky early start to September's reading by getting stuck into the aforementioned Chris Beckett's most recent book, Tomorrow. I should be reading tomorrow. That'll be on audiobook. In actual book form, I think I'll start the ball rolling with Snow Crash, about which I hear very good things. And if I make rapid progress through that, then I shall pick up Thomas Dish's The Genocides next. I shall see how I get on with that lot, and possibly I'll be able to squeeze something else in too. As always, thank you for watching. Have a super weekend, and until next time, bye for now.